So let's jump straight into the making of this short, but more or less of the mindset when I was making it. When I first started creating this, I originally wanted it to be a dialogue-free animated short. Dialogue being like spoken words or just stuff what you're hearing right now. I normally try and stay clear of this when making parodies because the second I start adding in dialogue, the jokes are now suddenly bound to one language. In this case, English. I'd rather make animated shorts with visual storytelling only because then anyone of any culture and any language can understand it. However, I found with Pokemon Go, things were just a little tricky to do it with visual storytelling only. It could have been done, but it wouldn't have had the impact that I was really looking for, so I had to add in dialogue to tell the story more quicker and efficiently. Speaking of quicker and efficiently, the opening skit was inspired by a director named Edgar Wright, a director responsible for Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and hell, even Ant-Man. The thing with Edgar Wright is he uses visual means to get a message across. For example, his transition cuts.
You see the one on the other side?
I used the exact same method when creating the idea of getting ready for a Pokewalk. Not only did it save animation time, but also got to the point pretty much instantly. Now, speaking of cuts, I ended up recreating two shots. The first one was this shot right here where I used stock footage of a powder hit, but I found that it was too realistic and just felt way out of place. So I went back in and created my own cartoony-like puff of smoke so it would blend nicely in with the entire shot. I also had to recreate the final shot of the second skit. I found I originally had a very seriously drawn face expression which I felt didn't really have any humor to it. So I went back in and redrew it, this time with the idea of a more simpler face expression, and it worked. Now, for those of you who would like to know what software I use, never fear, 'tis why this video is here. The majority of this video was created inside of Flash. I then used After Effects to composite everything together, and a third-party plugin known as Optical Flares from videocopilot.net. Editing-wise, I use Sony Vegas. I know, I'm like 10 years behind everyone. I should be using Premiere, but too lazy to. As for music, I use FL Studios. Most of the songs were remix songs from the Pokemon games, aside from the Pokemon Go battle music and Viridian City. Oh yes, and for the 3D stuff, I use 3D Max. Some of the shots used in this short was inspired by animated shots from the anime studio, Studio Trigger. Such as the throwing Pokeball shot, it was inspired by the Panty and Stockings transformation sequence. And this little shot here was inspired by Kill la Kill, which I found the shot through this awesome Kill la Kill AMV on YouTube. And if you're wondering, no, I didn't trace it. I never trace. I usually just take inspiration, which is kind of close to tracing. Let's move on. Cue the shot breakdowns. Now, the nighttime sequence was incredibly fun to create. The second skit I set in the afternoon because I find in afternoon lighting, it really helps pop characters or create a lot of depth within the shot. However, nighttime lighting I found has a rather gorgeous look to it. I'm a sucker for lens effects, mostly depth of field. What? You're expecting me to say lens flares, weren't you? I mean, don't get me wrong, I do like my lens flares, but I'll take depth of field over lens flares any day. But what I love the most about lens effects is bokeh, otherwise known as background blur. Background blur to like city lights or traffic lights really has this artistic, crisp look to it, and I love it. Kyoto Animations is famous for its lighting and lens effects, and I drew inspiration from a scene from the anime Hibike Euphonium. There. Mainly this shot right here.
見たくたって言うとちょっと違うけど、他人と違うことがしたかったの。
And to answer some of your questions, no, I haven't actually seen this. I sort of saw a screenshot of it when I Google imaged just anything to do with nighttime in anime. I ended up mixing hand-drawn backgrounds with live-action bokeh stock footage with a few artistic tweaks here and there, and we end up with this. And honestly, I can't wait to create more animations set at night. So much so, I'm already planning on creating an animation at night in the rain. It's gonna look gorgeous. And of course, let's take a look at the breakdown of this shot right here. So yes, I guess the biggest advice that I can possibly give is if you're making a scene, try and figure out an artistic way to make a shot. Use color, use lens effects, use bokeh, use some even live action footage, stock footage even. It'll really help drive a shot even further, and do what I've done. Go off and look at some references to see how other people, especially in animation, see how they've conveyed their shot in an artistic way instead of just drawing a shot just outright. Anyway guys, that brings us to the end of the making of video. Hopefully you've learned a few things from this. I certainly have learned a lot from making this project, and I shall see you guys next time. See you around. I don't care if she's like someone's waifu or something, but what a bitch.